This podcast is made possible by the listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's February 4th, 2025, which means we're just a couple of days removed from an announcement that new tariffs could go into effect on goods imported here from the nation's next-door neighbors, Canada and Mexico. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Folks are bracing to see what kind of repercussions will come if the tariffs on Mexico and Canada go into effect in the next 30 days. And if the countries respond by raising their own tariffs, Tennessee businesses definitely could feel the impact pretty keenly. Canada is the largest foreign market for Tennessee-made goods, and Mexico is number 2. Together, in 2023, this state exported nearly $15 billion worth of goods to those two nations alone. And we buy a lot of goods from them, too. In these colder months, our grocery stores carry a lot of produce grown down in Mexico. Same for many of the vehicles and car parts sold here. We also imported about $7 billion worth of Canadian goods last year, mainly pharmaceutical products, aluminum, and plastics. Our economic development initiatives are tangled up with those two countries, too. About 11,000 Tennesseans work for Canadian-owned companies. Once Ford gets its massive Blue Oval City vehicle assembly plant up and running in West Tennessee, those vehicles are supposed to include seats and battery enclosures made in Ontario. Meanwhile, our auto parts factories send their products down to assembly plants in Mexico. In other words, our economies, our business landscapes are all very deeply intertwined. But what does it really mean to our own pocketbooks when the U.S. gets into trade wars like this? Well, we can look back to 2018. That's when President Trump raised the tariff on certain Chinese-made products. One of the first to go up was the levy on Chinese-made washing machines. What we saw in that case was that the companies didn't eat the cost. Instead, they passed it on to consumers. The cost of buying one of those washing machines increased. But then Chinese-made dryers started to cost more too. Now, nothing had changed in the cost of bringing dryers to market. That tariff was untouched. But washers and dryers are generally sold together. So with the cost of one half of the pair going up, manufacturers saw and took the opportunity to hike up the price for the other half of the pair. And once imported machines cost more, well, then domestic manufacturers decided to jump on the opportunity to raise their prices too. American-made washers and dryers were never subject to tariffs in the first place. But if their competitors could ask consumers to pay more, then they figured they could too. According to analysis from the American Economic Association, the end result of those Trump tariffs was that American consumers bore 100% of the burden, and the Chinese manufacturers that Trump had in his crosshairs came away no worse for wear. Now, in other areas, the economic fight did result in declines of imported goods from China. We stopped buying as many semiconductors and IT hardware from there, but a lot of sectors seemed untouched by the 2018 tariff changes. They just drove up their prices, and Americans kept buying Chinese-made clothing, toys, and phones, just paying more for them. Across the board, consumers bore the brunt of the way the 2018 trade war affected the nuts and bolts of getting goods to market. It ushered in a new era of shortages, supply chain problems, and inflation. And that's before the pandemic added an entirely new layer of complications to the mix. This time, things are potentially more complicated. The trade with our next-door neighbors is much more of a two-way street, especially when you drill down to Tennessee specifically. So buckle up, folks, and keep an eye on where the things you buy come from and whether their prices start to rise. In just a few minutes, how other executive orders from the Trump White House are affecting people who hoped to find asylum in Middle Tennessee. That's coming up after the newscast.
We know that local government isn't the only part of your life.
Like the mayor, I know that city government isn't the only thing you're concerned with.
We are still struggling to find affordable housing.
Particularly for this bus stop.
That's one of the unique challenges with my business.
I'm WPLN's Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams. I'm working to break down topics like transit, housing, and local government to make sure that when you are thinking about Metro, you're getting the full story. Follow my latest stories at WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Tennessee's governor got everything on his legislative wish list during the special session last week. WPLN's Miriam reports that includes a sweeping immigration bill.
Governor Bill Lee's immigration plan passed the State House Thursday with near unanimous support from his fellow Republicans who control both chambers.
And now we stand ready to assist the president in his further agenda for public safety for our state.
The bill creates a new state division to enforce immigration laws and $5 million in grants for local law enforcement to work with the federal government's immigration and customs enforcement. And in a provision Democrats say is unconstitutional, local elected officials could face felony charges if they vote for sanctuary policies for immigrants. That's why State Senator Todd Gardenhire voted against it, the only Republican in either chamber to oppose it.
We're telling an elected official who pledged to do the best job and obey the Constitution of the United States and the state of Tennessee, you can't cast a vote. That, to me, is not part of being a republic.
Democratic State Representative Gabby Salinas and her family immigrated to Tennessee when she was a child with cancer seeking treatment. She says the late U.S. Senator Fred Thompson and others helped them stay in the country permanently after a car accident killed her father and paralyzed her mom.
People like Senator Fred Thompson could be considered a felon with jail time, and every single local politician that helped us.
The bill's House sponsor, Republican William Lamberth, argued that he supports more pathways for legal immigration, but that his bill is aimed at illegal immigration.
There are terrorists, there are criminals, and yes, for every immigrant that has a dream and a future that came here legally, there are hundreds who have killed American citizens.
Supporters of immigration point to research showing immigrants are actually less likely to commit crimes than people born in the U.S. In Tennessee, they also worry now that part of this law creates a new driver's license design for migrants without legal status, and that will lead to racial profiling. Mariana Bacallao, WPLN News.
There's been a lot of tension between Metro Nashville's Historic Zoning Commission and business owners in one of the city's most historic districts. And that breakdown in relations is contributing to the suggestion that the commission be reorganized entirely. Consultants are advising the city to fold historic zoning decisions into the Metro Planning Department. The current standalone commission has often been at odds with the owners of honky-tonks and other tourist-related businesses on Lower Broadway. They've fought over the scope of design guidelines for the neighborhood, all the way down to details like the color of lights on the exterior of buildings. The Tennessean reports the consultants found those disagreements are extensive to an unhealthy degree. What's more, the fights are fueling discussion to put these decisions in the hands of state authorities instead of the local government. Separately, downtown Nashville's Broadway Strip and the city's bustling neighborhoods could soon have a nighttime code enforcement team to help keep a lid on issues like loud music, illegal dumping, or people operating unlicensed businesses. Currently, the Metro Codes Department closes at 4 p.m., leaving residents with no recourse after hours. It's been a pain point for years. Metro Council member Joy Stiles is sponsoring the legislation to create an after-hours code enforcement team so late nights don't become a free-for-all. News Channel 5 reports the proposal provides funding for 2 inspectors who will work under the city's night mayor and will be backed by the Nashville Police. The legislation has passed its first council reading. Tonight's Metro Council meeting will include its annual pre-budget public comment period. That gives time for Nashvillians to share their desires for next year's budget before the mayor submits the proposed budget. It does not replace the budget public hearing, which will be held in June after the mayor finalizes his proposal. Speakers must sign up between 5 and 6 p.m. at the Metro Courthouse, where the meeting is held. Temperatures across Tennessee ranged from sub-zero to over 100 degrees last year, but the average ended up hot. WPLN's Caroline Eggers says every county in the state experienced a top 5 warmest year on record.
Last year, 34 Tennessee counties had their warmest year on record, including Davidson County, and another 34 had their second warmest year ever. But there was a wide range of extremes. Last year started cold with an Arctic blast. January 2024 was among the coldest months on record. But then that February warmed up to be one of the hottest. Kind of like this year. This January in Nashville ended up even colder than last year. And this week, the city hit 70 degrees.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration forecasts that February may bring above normal temperatures and possibly extra rain to Tennessee. A 29-year-old woman has been arrested following a fight that led to a mass panic over the weekend at Opry Mills Mall. Hundreds of people fled after hearing instructions over the mall's loudspeakers to shelter in place. Many believed there was active gunfire. The woman was charged with kidnapping and aggravated assault. Police say she attacked an ex-boyfriend inside the kitchen of the Chili's restaurant where he worked. Police say the woman broke a glass over the man and forced him outside into a car. Another woman then picked up a shoe from the ground, causing some people to mistake that for a handgun. More than 40 police officers and other emergency teams responded and confirmed there was no evidence of gunfire. The mall was temporarily closed during the investigation.
You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org.
Thousands of asylum seekers in Middle Tennessee are facing an uncertain future following an executive order from President Donald Trump suspending asylum. These are people who say they came to the United States to escape persecution or harm in their home countries. One local asylum seeker shared his story with WPLN's Rose Gilbert.
I meet Radur for tea and kebabs at a local market in South Nashville. Radur is a pseudonym, one he picked for himself because it means far from home in Kurdish. WPLN News is not using his real name because he fears that he and his family could be deported. Radur is a Kurdish farmer from Turkey, and he's been living in Middle Tennessee with his wife and young son for more than a year. It's been a big adjustment.
Because it's a different culture and different language, everything is different. For example, the little things, we're using the metric system, they're using the another system.
But they've embraced their new home. Radur has a job at a restaurant, and his wife is expecting their second child this spring. He shows me pictures of them walking together by the Ryman Auditorium with his son on his shoulders.
I mean, everything is different. But in America, in U.S., I can say I'm happy.
He says he even tried to join the U.S. military.
Like, I want to pay back. Yeah, I want to serve for this country and my country.
But he couldn't because he doesn't have a green card. Radur made the decision to come to America about 2 years ago. One day, he woke up in the early hours of the morning to armed police at his door. They were there to arrest him for some old social media posts, including this one, which translates to, "Our country is Kurdistan. Freedom is our goal." Kurdish people face significant political and cultural repression in Turkey. In Radur's case, pro-Kurdish social media posts were enough for him to be arrested and convicted for creating terrorist propaganda. And he says there was no guarantee of his safety in prison.
There is no any guarantee for my life. If I go back to Turkey, I'm going to go to the prison, and I don't know what's going to happen to my children or my wife.
So he skipped town, flew to Mexico, crossed the southern border, and filed for asylum in the United States. He got a lawyer and an immigration hearing. But, as his lawyer told him, the U.S. asylum process takes a long time. His court date isn't until next year. Now, with Trump's executive order suspending the asylum process, Radur is worried that his court date could be canceled entirely. His family's future is in limbo.
Yeah, we moved to America for just freedom, for liberty, for a safe life. I want for them a good life, a beautiful life, and safe city, and no discrimination, no racism.
Radur has been settling in with the help of Mehmet Ayaz, who knows what it's like to start over in Nashville. Ayaz is also Kurdish. He became a U.S. citizen after leaving Turkey more than 20 years ago. For many years, he explains, the Turkish government outlawed the words Kurd and Kurdish, instead calling them Mountain Turks. There's even a song about it, which he and Radur both know.
I'm not a Mountain Turk. I'm not an Arab. I'm not a Persian. I'm Kurd. I have been Kurd, and I will be Kurd.
There's been an uptick in Kurdish asylum seekers from Turkey since the pandemic, with about 2,000 people coming to Nashville in just the past few years. Ayaz says that many of the new arrivals he's helped were thrilled to see people in Tennessee openly flying the Kurdish flag or speaking Kurdish without fear of retribution.
The United States was a hope for them. It was a land of freedom, that they could be free and be actually themselves and be productive. Now it is in jeopardy. So
usually he tries to convince new arrivals like Redur that things are different in America and that they can put their faith in the legal system here.
You have rights. This is not a third world country. You're a human. You're respected as a human in the United States. Doesn't matter who you are. There is a process. There's a legal process that has to take place.
But under Trump's executive order, that legal process has come to a halt. Rose Gilbert, WPLN News.
On Monday, the American Civil Liberties Union filed a lawsuit challenging Trump's order to suspend asylum in the United States, calling it unlawful and unprecedented. Thanks for listening to the Nashvillager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.